Toyota Stadium sits just 15 minutes outside downtown St. Louis, and the fans been waiting for a winner in Missouri. St. Louis Football Club playing host to the United Soccer League Game of the Week as Phoenix Rising, one of the top attractions in the league, pays a visit. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Devin Kerr alongside Mike Watts with you. And, well, Phoenix Rising last year showed the blueprint for how to turn a franchise around in a short amount of time. St. Louis would love to follow that. For Phoenix, though, of late, despite being the top scoring offense in the league, without Didier Drogba the last two games, they haven't been able to figure it all out.
And tonight's the night they're going to look to turn it around again and win this in their last three. If you go back to their U.S. Open Cup match, Patrice shaking some things up, messing around with the formation a little bit, dealing with some personnel issues. We've had some guys that have been in and out because of injury, so trying to push this team in the right direction. But the positive thing is that they have the offensive talent going forward. Defensively, they need to solidify things a little bit better.
And Chris Cortez, a guy who is at times a poacher, he just knows how to score.
And this is talking about the formation changes we talked about. Chris Cortez has been used up top in that isolated position, done a great job, Team of the Week, Player of the Week as well. In transition, it's difficult for him sometimes. He lacks the speed, but he makes up for it with the vision and the supportive character role that he can play in this Phoenix Rising squad.
Always scores well at home, sometimes struggles on the road. If you don't know Kyle Gregg, you haven't been paying attention.
Journeyman of sorts, but he's really coming in to form in this season, and he's done a great job up top for Anthony Pulis and the St. Louis squad. The problem is at times he's the only one up there. They've got a lot of offensive firepower as well, but with Kyle Gregg, Corey Herzog, Albert Dequa, getting them on the same page at the same time has been struggling to do so. But if you look at the numbers right there, it's showing you that in 50% of the games this year, he's been able to find the back of the net. Anthony Pulis really hasn't had that from his time here so far. Of course, back in OCB, struggled as well. So nice to have a goal scorer that can find the net. Now he's got to get someone to help him out.
Gregg was great under Alan Koch in 2016, went to Cincinnati in a struggle for form, but it seems he's found it this year. Could he be the kind of scorer that helps turn it all around for St. Louis FC and take them on their first ever USL playoff run? Will Phoenix Rising figure things out tonight, end their losing streak, and go on the road for 3 points? Find out next. St. Louis, 10th in the Western Conference, taking on Phoenix Rising, now 7 points off the pace atop the West, sitting in third. USL Game of the Week on ESPN3, just moments away from kicking off. Devin Kerr alongside Mike Watts. Let's meet the lineups. And for Phoenix, 4 changes to this group, and to say Patrice Carteron was not happy with their 1-0 loss to Swole Park is an understatement.
All the shakeups that we've seen started off switching from that 4-2-3-1 that was so prevalent for this Phoenix Rising team and this offense going forward, switching to the 3-4-3. They'll move into a diamond in the middle. You're going to see a lot of movement around the ball. Cody Wakasa on the right, Amadou Dia. They've become much more effective in this offense. Unfortunately, we've seen some defensive duties that have really struggled once you come back. Holding midfielder James Musa has stepped into that center back role with Joe Farrell and Mike DeFont hoping to hold down the back line. Going forward hasn't been the problem. It's once they turn around and bring it back.
On the other side, Anthony Pulis making a few changes. John Barden, their captain, returns from a red card suspension. Stanley to the bench. Culbertson comes on. They defend very well, and they've got some very talented attacking players.
Going in the other direction, they're almost on the opposite side of Phoenix Rising, where, like you said, Mike, they do a great job coming out of the back in transition, moving the ball forward well, but just lacking a little bit of ingenuity in the final third. We talked about Kyle Gregg at the top of our broadcast, but he needs guys like Kadeem Dakers, Corey Herzog. They need that 2- and 3-man game to get going into the final third to help find the back on a regular basis.
And there's one of the changes for St. Louis. Tomas Gomez, who spent the last 2 years with the Rochester Rhinos, winning Golden Gloves in both years, makes his second start in his hometown uniform. A St. Louis native born in Mexico, a former draft pick of the Columbus Crew, 25 years old, the 6'2" goalkeeper gets a chance here tonight. It's the all-red kits for Phoenix Rising on the road, a 3-match all-competition losing streak. St. Louis FC, a team with the tremendous potential in USL. Well, can they figure it out tonight against this stacked Phoenix roster at home? Finally, again, we're underway in the USL Game of the Week. No Didier Drogba tonight. He could well find himself out for the foreseeable future. Listed out due to personal reasons. St. Louis missing a handful of significant players due to injury. Asante got a touch to that, deflects back, and Gomez his first touch. Gomez signed with San Jose after being drafted by Columbus. His option declined. Part of a St. Louis FC team that has deep St. Louis roots, to say the least.
Something that St. Louis, although very stout defensively, they've struggled in goal. Jake Fennelson stepping in and doing his best, but in his 9 appearances, 21 saves, only 4 shutouts, but 14 goals against. And that's a number that's not going to push you forward in this league. Tomas Gomez is going to get his 3rd appearance here this evening, and outside of all the accolades, unfortunately had to deal with that hip injury, which kept him out until mid-May, fighting back. Head coach Anthony Pulis telling us that he didn't want to start him in consecutive games recently to kind of ease him back in the swing of things.
St. Louis off the restart. Aims toward Kavita, and will get out for a goal kick. And our first look at Carl Wazinski, who started just 1 of the last 5. Zach Lubin played so well on the Oklahoma road trip through OKC Energy and Tulsa, where Phoenix had blowout victories. Lubin got the chance to play again against Swole Park Rangers, his former organization. But it's Wazinski, a record holder in the USL for saves in a season. It's back between the sticks tonight. He's looking like that was 4, huh? A little wide to the left.
I'll get it. Some early game antics.
Wazinski out to claim in front of Corey Herzog. When we spoke with Patrice Carteron, it was interesting to hear him talk a bit about spirit, about competition, about being respected by opposition and not being able to sneak up on anybody. He felt like they lacked that competitive spirit against Swole Park, a 1-0 loss where they conceded in the 4th minute. just never got the wheels back on.
There's actually been a few times this year you could question the character of this squad, and we've seen the results. You've seen the points that they can put up. They'll score 3, 4, 5 goals a game, and they'll do it on a regular basis, but what sort of spirit do they have? And Patrice kept stressing that to us, that was a priority for this squad going forward. He was extremely disappointed in the last game, and some patches in and out of other games felt like they wasn't really a representation of what the Phoenix Rising Soccer Club should be, and that's what he'll tell you. That's not what we're about. We want to give our fans some pleasurable football. They haven't been able to do it in the past couple games, looking to get back on track.
Barton goes to work. Hilton, former Charlotte Independence player, knocking it to the left-hand side. Fanuel Kavita. Up the line for Kadeem Dakers. Throw one by Jason Johnson. There's Anthony Pulis. Wasn't on the touchline against Colorado Springs. He told us part of being a manager, especially being a former player, who went from playing directly to the touchline, figuring out just how much he can press referees, it felt like. Like he can't let the emotions get the better of him.
Needs to harness that raw emotion almost, and St. Louis kind of follows suit. Just flipping sides again. We talked about the offense, defensive statistics initially, but now it's when you get into that character and emotion conversation, St. Louis is on the other side of it. They've got positive performances. They've carried good character, but Anthony Pulis tells us that you have to trust the process. Two managers telling us two different things. Priority is spirit for Phoenix Rising. Trust the process for St. Louis. They're happy with the environment that they have. He loves being here, loves being a part of this city, the entire organization. But at some point in time, he's going to have to understand that you have to step up and show us what you're made of. If you want to compete for a USL title, 3 coaches in 3 years, the fans will start to get a little bit restless.
Chance now from long range. It's a hit for Phoenix in the 6th minute of play. An absolute missile from Cortez.
Ask and you shall receive. That's what they always say. Chris Cortez stepping right out of the shadows into the limelight and unleashes a cannon from about 30 yards out. Takes a look up, the back line retreating, just picks it out. Unfortunately, Gomez shielded a little bit on the effort from Cortez, one of the center backs in his way, but a good job by the forward stepping up and making the most of his opportunity.
6th minute from Chris Cortez, and all those question marks about goal scoring for Phoenix on this road swing of sorts. Well, perhaps that's the right direction. On the other side, Greg lost this well out of play.
Such a difficult ball for Tomas Gomez to see. It's hard from what you're seeing on television, but you have to understand the ball coming through traffic as it sprays across, came from the right side back into the middle. He's dealing with the sun setting, the shadows in and out. All those things can play tricks on your mind, and Gomez just stood still, frustrated by the fact he couldn't even get a hand on it.
Yeah, a picture sometimes worth 1,000 words, and well, he didn't move an inch, did he? Asante a little bit behind, comes to Owako. Taken away by Calistri, wins the free kick for St. Louis. Well, if you're St. Louis now, you just have to get your head back in the game. A wonder strike by Phoenix. That shouldn't deter them this early on in the match.
Anthony Pulis told us that they've dealt with so many variables this season, and it's dealing with the early goals, some refereeing issues here and there, the field problems, but at the end of the day that they're professionals, and you can't make excuses. You have to go out and get the job done. The character we talked about is going to put true to form and test here this evening, as they've got to go 82 minutes to try and figure out What went wrong in the opening 8 minutes?
Takers with a touch. Well, Takers has arrived. Takers serving for Herzog. Off his chest. Ultimately deflected on the way out. Off of Joe Farrell. Corner coming for St. Louis.
Good job by St. Louis stepping up with the pressure. Kadeem Dakers just seeing Herzog with that bending run to the back post. You see Joe Farrell, typically a center back, making his mark in the three-back system. Got to get a little bit more acclimated to his environment, deal with the shifting players back and forth. Carl Wazinski not happy with the referee's decision, but good response from St. Louis.
Corner on the way for St. Louis. Bounces toward Fink. Out by Culbertson. Lofted ball off of Musa. You've played in the center back role. I'm not sure to the extent that you've played within a three-back look, but is it really that much more difficult to make that transition as Greg commits a rather obvious foul?
Not only has Joe Farrell played in the center back position, he's played in a four-back center back position where you shift constantly. So when you go to the three, you have to understand in this 3-4-3 system that Phoenix is playing right now, that's great. Center back shifting out wide to the right. And you're like, okay, well, you've got Devontae DeBose, you've got Cody Wakasa, or whoever they're going to use for the evening out on the right-hand side. But they're trying to push numbers forward. So as they go, it isolates the left channel. So Joe Farrell has to cover a lot more ground. You're going to deal with some more man marking. You're passing more players. When you deal with a 4-4-2, a 3-5-1, whatever it may be to counteract, it's all going to depend on who's on the other end that you're going to have to mark.
Owako skies that wide right of the post.
Fortunately enough for Joe Farrell here this evening, Kyle Gregg, Corey Herzog, Kadeem Dakers. These guys aren't making those one-on-one runs or combining combination on a regular basis. So it's been a little bit easier of a task for the defensive units going up against St. Louis, but that's not going to stay. That's going to change eventually. Anthony Pulis hoping that they can get it done tonight, but he's just going to have to keep his head on a little bit more of a swizzle. In that four-back system, you can pass a little bit more efficiently.
St. Louis retreating. Jason Johnson by Fink, and Gomez knocks it away. Devon Lambert, the Jamaican. And now up wide left. It's Jason Johnson. Crossing and a touch. Cortez was looking for a second. Had the right idea. It was a good run.
Jason Johnson is someone who's been very streaky this year for Phoenix Rising. They've used him up top in that isolated position we see Cortez in tonight. They've used him on the right as well in a super sub role, but Jason Johnson has such a good soccer IQ, and you see him use it there to the best of his abilities. Just picks out that far post, that left foot that he carries. Great speed, great vision. Loves to do stuff one-on-one, but good ball served into Cortez.
Patrice Carteron will do a little bit of extra leg work. Throw for Amadou Dia. Kyle Gregg won the throw for St. Louis. Vida goes backward. Really stripped by Cortez. Now intercepted by Dio, sprinting with Barton in pursuit. Slides it down the middle. This will get over Johnson. A swarming red jerseys. Truly red fury early on in this match.
Something to keep an eye on for Phoenix as they step forward. You see the speed of Amadou Dia on the left and just outrunning the marksman of Chris Cortez. Cortez not able to keep pace in that situation, but in that three-back system, because they like to go forward, you have the capability in James Musa, who will step up into that central role, isolating the back line even more for Mike DeFont and Joe Farrell. Makes that job that much harder in transition. That's where they've really struggled defensively. You've seen it a little bit on the right-hand side so far with Fanuel Kavita and Kadeem Dakers trying to go one-on-one down there. That's where they've had some success so far. Just trying to utilize it a little bit more.
This will bounce all the way to Wazinski. And when we spoke with Anthony Pulis a little bit this week, you asked about Aiden Stanley. He's played really well on the wing. And we asked a bit about Pierre Da Silva, who came on loan from Orlando City last week, stayed for one game, and then left again. St. Louis trying to find the right combination, although they do have experienced USL caliber wing players in Calistri and Dakers to provide some push up front.
Pulis frustrated, to say the least, that neither Pierre Da Silva or Cameron Lindley were able to stay longer than the one-game loan. Pierre putting in a great performance. Cameron Lindley just holding down the middle of the field. But yeah, they got to get guys going both ways. Talked about the youngster, Aiden Stanley, has done so well going forward, but Pulis admitting to us that he's really struggled with his defensive duties. Normally they utilize him in a wing-back system, but recently moving into that four-back, and they play the 4-4-2, and you can see that some of his positioning just off in certain areas. And you have to remember that still extremely young player trying to gain experience.
All lined over the top. Picked up by Wazinski. That was Dakers trying to make a run. At the same time, St. Louis doesn't necessarily have players that get in behind at the rate that maybe a Phoenix does, where they just are athletes all over the field.
They're also missing a lot of their personnel. Tony Walls, who had a great opening game, he's got a calf tear. Austin Martz is struggling with a hip tear. Wall Fall has dealt with a multitude of injuries this season. Those are three guys that could arguably be in the starting 11 right now, not able to make a look.
Ball for Greg. It's poked away. Sean Reynolds reverses all the way back to Gomez. Both winners of the USL Cup over the last 3 years. Gomez arriving to Rochester. Now they're just after their USL championship. Reynolds winning in Louisville City. It's Calistri. Wakasa backs in. Barden again missed the last game due to red card suspension against Colorado Springs. 3-goal loss for St. Louis. Johnson slows it down. Can he get the switch? Solomon Asante, as good a chance creator as there is in this league. Cortez was in an offside position. Nice flick. And now the shot is just wide from Herzog. Wazinski goes slamming into his post. If Herzog puts that in, you'll be seeing it all week.
Was just about to be extremely critical of Corey Herzog that he wasn't going to play this into space over his left shoulder. Had the overlapping run coming from Kadeem Dakers, but Corey Herzog showing us the great visionary that he is, trying to pick out that upper quarter against Carl Wazinski.
Herzog, a guy who played both with and against Anthony Pulis. He's coached against him. Now he finally gets the chance to coach Herzog. He said he saw him first in Wilmington when Orlando City was on a 15-game-plus unbeaten streak. Said he almost single-handedly knocked the Lions off in that USL match the year before Orlando City went to MLS. could not speak highly enough of Corey Herzog.
That was a fun conversation, wasn't it? To have like kind of 3 different looks at it. Said that he just tore us apart. and then going coaching against him, that no matter what, anytime you watched film, he was the focal point because he was the guy that constantly came up. Such a difficult person to mark on a regular basis. He's that variable that was ever changing, gives you so many different looks.
Dave Brandt was the head coach last year in Pittsburgh, had a good comment. Solomon Asante. That's this well over the crossbar. Brandt said last year rather about Corey Herzog, the exuberance of an 11-year-old, the biggest 11-year-old kid I know. On the other side, Asante, the guy that Patrice Cartheron has told us time and time again, he'll bring great pleasure to the fans, just an out-and-out playmaker.
What's crazy with Solomon Asante is he's already put up some decent numbers, 4 goals and 3 assists this year, and he's probably been the one mainstay on this squad for the most part that has put in a positive performance each and every week. Patrice telling us we've only scratched the surface with him and his talents.
Owako was looking for Johnson, who was again offside.
Good look at Jason Johnson, Jamaican international reggae boy, just gets caught a little bit ball watching. Got to give credit to the back line of St. Louis stepping up in that situation. Center back Sam Fink rotating out. With the other guys behind him, Sean Reynolds and Kyle Carlton stepping up, recognizing the threat.
"20 minutes gone in Missouri in the USL Game of the Week. Chris Cortez, a wonder strike in the 6th minute of play. Have Phoenix out in front. Phoenix, losers of 3 straight games, taken to task by their coach last time out after a disappointing performance away to Swope Park in Kansas City. Well, St. Louis trying to find themselves a little bit of good luck. Seems like they've been snake-bitten of late. Injuries, maybe even a couple of referees' decisions they felt could have gone a different direction. Stephant takes over. Slip ball through. Well done by Dakers to get to ground. Herzog. Johnson. Athleticism to keep that in.
Gonna have a conversation with Jason Johnson. I'm really starting to feel bad about myself.
You used to be able to do that.
Notice the word you just used.
Used to? Yeah. Hey, for some of us, that's never been a capability.
The way my body feels, I'm just happy to get out of bed in the morning.
Most teams that face St. Louis feel the same way, so ask Jason Johnson tomorrow. Cortez plays it back, and it's Owako for Asante. Calistri makes his recovery run, forces Asante inside, ultimately plays down the center and beyond Cortez. Patrice Cartheron said this is your typical English style of team, St. Louis. Physical, full 90-minute effort. Of course, Anthony Pulis' dad, Tony Pulis, coached in the Premier League and in the championship. He's been around the block. I think large in part Anthony's tactics are genetic. All lobbed over the top, Herzog. There again, off the volley, and it's a goal kick. Tell me if there was any point in your career when you could have kept the ball in like Jason Johnson does here.
I'm just going to go ahead and say no. Yeah, maybe. Okay, maybe. Yeah. I would have kept it in for a second. It probably would have ended up out of bounds again, but
I think a trampoline would have helped.
To be honest, I could, for my height and size, I could move pretty well. I was very proud of myself. I was one of the people that was blessed with speed, even though I was 6'4" and long-haired, we'll say. Got to respect the man bun, you know?
Kyle Gregg again, he'll hop up. Do I?
I'll show you pictures.
Helps Farrell up. Greg's been a one-man wrecking crew. Anthony Pulis told us before the game, just amazed he was even available 2 weeks into preseason.
It's always interesting to hear philosophies and tactics and managers stepping up, and said that they had their eye on him, and unfortunately just kind of disappeared last year, ended up in Cincinnati, and they just kind of kept an eye seeing what was going on. And when he came to St. Louis, as you mentioned, just took a look back, took a run and said, wow, couldn't believe Kyle Gregg was available, bring him in, and he's had some great success. And again, just one of the things that St. Louis, you got to go back to their roster. Only 5 subs here this evening, and we talked about Walls, Martz, and Fall, but also the departure of Christian Valesky. They acquired the international roster spot for him, making his way over to Oklahoma City, providing an opportunity for him to progress his career there. They wish him the best of luck. And you had 3 more in Lindley, Opoku, and De Silva. You just named 7 players that can make an offensive impact on this squad right now. Not available.
Hilton was fouled. And in speaking about Valesky, Anthony Pulis told us he had always looked at him fondly from other places, but it just didn't seem to entirely work out, which is the same thing you could say about Kyle Gregg last year in his time in Vancouver and Cincinnati. Sometimes it doesn't work out. To Valesky's credit, went to the Energy and scored in his first game with the club. Hilton on the restart at the 25-minute mark. It's over everybody. Herzog in pursuit with Wakasa chasing. Gladson Awako turns away from Sean Reynolds, finds Asante. Fink in good position.
Too many touches from Solomon. Gladson did a good job holding the ball up, but they just kind of let St. Louis get behind the ball and reset.
Well, play will come back. Kevin Broadley is the referee. Amadou Dia appeared to impede St. Louis's offensive attack.
Good area for left footer Kyle Culbertson to get involved and swing a nice ball and use the big bodies. The guys run underneath, they get a little flick on and get that second or third ball in the middle of the box, cause some confusion for Carl Wazinski.
Won't be Culbertson, it'll be Hilton. Caught out in front of the Luligans. One of those supporters groups where regardless of the numbers they bring to any specific game, always seem to find a way to be heard. To the point where I don't think any team wants to go play in front of them, if that makes sense. Except, of course, St. Louis.
It was fun on social media last week. Saw one of the St. Louis making their way out to the Colorado Springs game, stopping at the borders, holding up their flag.
In swinging ball is punched aside by Wazinski.
It's a testament to how far this league has come and continues to grow and just push numbers attendance-wise. Great performances, both offensively and defensively. We've seen a lot of goals and great PK stops by other goaltenders around the league. And the fans just traveling all over, supporting their team in any way, shape, and form possible.
Asante onto his backside to head that wide. Comes down, Johnson. And now the shot from Cortez. A fair under it, beyond Gomez. I mean, Phoenix is the poster child of it, aren't they? I mean, from Arizona United, and this is about 1 year since Patrice Carteron took over, and it began under Frank Yallop and Rick Schantz, and all that the ownership group has done there. But he said, we're respected now. You bring Didier Drogba in, and you get worldwide respect just by his own performance. As Musa drops back to Wazinski.
Going on that tone, Patrice said in his exact words, we're not a small club anymore, to quote him. And interesting when you look in the grand scheme of things, but he's right. They've really gone through leaps and bounds to grow this club. You know, they've got their complex and obviously some massive names that have come in there personnel-wise. It doesn't hurt that they've had some solid performances to back it up.
It's funny, you think Wright Phillips and Drogba and Bravo, but in the end, they can just as easily be defined by Johnson and Cortez and Asante, names that you didn't know before they started scoring on the league's best offense this year. A group that came along so far in 2017. Barden, the captain in central midfield. Greg, another push, this one to the back of Amadou Dia. Sooner or later, the referee might count some fouls out to Kyle Gregg at this rate. We're only half an hour in.
Poor Kyle's getting picked on a little bit.
Is he?
Just a little bit. Such a great noise, the whistle of the referee. The tune of the mockingbird.
Johnson turning away from Kavita. He did win a corner for Phoenix Rising at the half-hour mark. Goal in the 6th minute from Chris Cortez. Jason Johnson and Phoenix feeling at home away to St. Louis FC. Their 24th goal of the season as a club, most in the United Soccer League. Service to the back post. Nobody home. Lambert allows it to Wakasa. It's Kevon Lambert now. Wakasa making his 4th start of the season. Looking it backward. Culbertson.
When you get down into situations like that, you have to expect better from the Jamaican Kevon Lambert. Ball gets sprayed back out after the restart. Nice little ball knocked over, and you've got to put something back into the mixer. Let the big boys, Mike DeFont, Joe Farrell, run up underneath it. Amadou Dia, all of these guys have great leaping ability. Got to give them an opportunity to get to it, though. Wasted just knocking it low to the front post.
Well, players will take a moment, rehydrate. So is Devin, too, by the way. This isn't quite Phoenix hot, but
32 minutes in, man. I'm feeling it.
Phoenix again, last time out against Swope Park. We're a group that needed a hydration break in the heat in Kansas City. You think about Phoenix right now, this is a team that's off to their best start in franchise history. You think back to last year, and it was up and down. They made a change in terms of their roster and in terms of their head coach. And you think about 2017 through 12 games and 2018, the point difference isn't all that great, but my eyes go right to goals allowed. This is a group that's a lot more steady than they were at the start of 2017 when it seemed like 3 and 4 goals allowed in a game was somewhat commonplace.
Expect to see that number continue to grow as well, because last year 51 goals for, 38 goals against, so plus 13. Right now sitting at plus 9, but remember, alongside that, they were 6-1-3 just 10 days ago. So only the one loss in that struggle they had versus Real Monarchs, where Sebastian Velasquez decided to step up, put that entire Monarchs team on the road on his back and score a great goal. So they've been much more prolific. See a good look at St. Louis FC there. They've been trying to find their way in 3-3-5, and like you said, similar results, but the 15 goals against, you got to knot that number down, because Look, before the 3 goals against, or excuse me, 3 goals for, 12 goals against, that number's starting to creep back up. But the difference is offensively, they've got the guys up top who can do it on a regular basis. It's just consistency hasn't been there. We talked about the defensive side of the ball and what they can do, but you can't win like that on a regular basis unless you're Bob Lilly.
Unless Barden and the St. Louis team move back out onto the field. Barden time in Ottawa, 25-year-old native of England, part of a defense that, well, in a lot of ways was resculpted over this offseason. See those 15 goals allowed, the same to this point as last year, but well, the offense really fell apart shortly thereafter. It's one of those stretches that left them on the outside looking in the playoff race by the time it was all said and done. For St. Louis, they finished 4 winless. They picked up just 2 points. And by the time the season ended, finishing in 12th, they finished 8 points out of the Eastern Conference playoffs. Still had a chance all the way toward the end. Dia. Of course, in the end, in the Western Conference, the number 8 seed ends up beating the number 1 seed. It wasn't quite so cut and dry in the East.
The road through Rio Tinto last year, Sac Republic came out and put a whooping on the Real Monarchs and figured out their formula to success quite rapidly. But go back to St. Louis defensively for a second. As critical as we've been of them, up until the game versus Colorado Springs last week, the only result that could really challenge or question, now step aside from the field conditions or the refereeing for a second, the only result that you could really challenge was the 6-3 loss versus Los Dos. Other than that, the results were pretty fair. I mean, the performance put on what they put out, we'll say. Then they come out versus Colorado Springs. 3-0. It's not really an accurate representation of what went on in that game. We saw it similarly with Orange County jumping out 4-0 a few weeks into the season. That game was 1-0 in the 80th minute and ended up scoring 3 final minute goals. So, you know, they've done a good job consistently wise coming out of the back, but that final third really lacking. And you've seen it here this evening as well. What's worked for them they haven't gone back to on the right side.
Dakers did that deflect. No, it's a goal kick.
And that's what they need to do, is continue down this path. Phoenix starts to push numbers forward. You almost have to hold camp a little bit, deal with the punches, and then start to go the other direction. Kadeem Dakers taking Amadou Dion one-on-one. Dia sitting very deep. As St. Louis was holding possession. You can hear the St. Louligans in the background getting involved in the act now, but transition is where it's going to be for St. Louis here this evening. You're going to have to deal with it defensively and then try and push numbers forward.
Bank, one of 3 team Ironmen to this point, put it back in play. Sliced through, chance now, Herzog save, Wazinski still alive for Herzog. Wazinski there again. Best opportunity so far for St. Louis.
Communication is key in this 3-back system, and you saw just a moment ago that Joe Farrell, James Musa, and Mike Defont having a few words with each other. Carl Wazinski stepping up, making 2 solid saves to thwart Corey Herzog. St. Louis starting to find their feet a little bit.
In swinging ball caught by Wazinski.
It's a good job changing direction. Lewis Hilton's going to play the ball, and Corey Herzog just makes that diagonal run in behind the back 3. James Musa out of position about 5-6 yards in front of the other 2, tracking back. Got to give credit where it's due. Carl Wazinski stepped up, made 2 huge saves.
Von Lambert knocking it into space. Dangerous challenge from Barden. Barden shown a yellow card.
Jonathan Barden, no stranger to cards here this year. 3rd yellow card of the year. And you talked about his suspension. Rough challenge in the closing moments of that Orange County game. That was another interesting conversation with Anthony Pulis talking about that, and I asked him very politely exactly what went on for him to deserve his suspension. He said that, without relaying all of the details, that he wasn't happy with the call. He quite gingerly put the ball on the ground. Unfortunately, it happened to bounce up and hit the 4th official, which was in turn depicted as him throwing the ball at the 4th official, and unfortunately wasn't able to stand on the sideline to go tit for tat with Steve Trittschuh last week at Colorado Springs.
Which he made it seem felt somewhat torturous. Lambert is down. Last year in Gold Cup, played with Jamaica, including their game in Phoenix, University of Phoenix Stadium. A lot of the rising players, including Didier Drogba, were there to watch that game. But Lambert came in towards the end of last year, became a regular starter, 8 starts down the stretch of the season. Now he spent time at Montego Bay United in Jamaica, had trialed at West Ham. And last year you could say was really his coming out party as an international footballer with Jamaica.
Something that Phoenix Rising fans weren't accustomed to up until the latter portion of last year, which is carried over this year. And you've got mainstays Gladson Awako, Solomon Asante, Kavan Lambert. All of these guys are acquired mid to late season, and now they're funneling into the starting lineup on a regular basis. That chemistry is such a vital thing here. We see so many pieces moving around the USL on a regular basis. Nice to see guys be able to sit in one place and push their careers positively. So Kavan Lambert walk it off, starting to feel a little bit better.
All over the top for Asante. In the end, he was allowed to stay in because the foul that brought him down was deemed yellow card worthy. Take that a step further, Devin. Of the starting 11 for Phoenix tonight, only 4 were with the club at the start of last season. Wazinski, the goalkeeper, Wakasa, the outside back, and Cortez and Johnson, the forwards. This is an entirely restructured midfield, a largely restructured back line. Sante enough of a touch to slow this down. And now the service is caught by Gomez. Greg against Farrell. And now Calistri, who's had a quiet first half. It's the moves on Wakasa. Calistri let this run out. Part of the massive turnaround in Tulsa last year on loan from Chicago Fire. Looking to move on to St. Louis.
Very rarely do you see that. A lot of guys 24 years old, grew up in Deerfield, Illinois, then to Northwestern, Chicago Academy homegrown. You mentioned the loan to Tulsa, spending most of his career in the Midwest. It's got to be fun for a player like that to be around his family.
Johnson, a touch away from Kavita. Dangerous from Barden on the back pass, but St. Louis cleans up the danger. Wakasa making his move. Solomon Asante. Awako. Asante. Asante has this ricochet for a corner. Sante played for Carteron. For arriving, the Ghanaian on the ball again. This will get out. And over by the bleachers, another corner coming for Phoenix Rising nearing the final minute of the first half.
Phoenix choosing to go with the two-man game out there again. A lot of very similar set pieces from the Rising.
Cortez lifts back. And now the shot. Owako follows. Save again. Gomez. Fink. Trying to get by it. And the flag is up for offside. St. Louis native. Big applause from the hometown crowd.
Too early to give my vote for save of the week.
Maybe.
Great ball into Lambert. Knocked back. And just pulls the trigger right at the top of the box. Tomas Gomez gets good positioning in the middle. And that's what we talked about. You see the sun has set. Had to deal with it a little bit earlier, but in traffic, Gomez able to make a great save right before halftime. Good momentum for St. Louis.
Calistri forgot something. Barden. Maybe a little bit of life now for St. Louis after that big stop by their goalkeeper, Culbertson. 5 minutes added time. Calistri. Calistri forcing his way through. Tried the cutback. Wakasa is there. Service. Knock back. Kadeem. Dakers. Right in to Wazinski. Easy stop for the goalkeeper to quell the St. Louis rising tide.
Kadeem Dakers has been very active on the right side today, mostly down into the channels. Saw him swinging balls into Corey Herzog a few times. Pinches in and fortunate recipient of a ball coming out and just takes a touch across his body. Needs to do better from there. He's got a good angle on Carl Wazinski. Had a lot of space to work with. Could have chosen either corner, instead knocks it right at him.
Dakers making his move. Dakers able to keep this still. Calistri overrun by Lambert. Hilton with the try. Comes all the way through. That deflected on the way. St. Louis applying pressure right before halftime, and you have to think back to that Gomez save as the moment that turned the momentum.
Could end up being the focal point in the transition for this team, but take your time, get the big boys up, bring up Sean Reynolds, bring up Sam Fink.
Chance now cleared off the short corner. Barden. Wazinski will claim.
Can't agree with that decision there. Kyle Culbertson electing to go short and gets an opportunity to go. If you're going to go in a short corner on that situation, you got to put something on frame. Just knocks it right into the left back. Another look just moments ago. Shot fizzing wide, catching a deflection, allowing the corner to happen. But again, you got a few minutes left before you have to go in the locker room at halftime. Just try and continue to push forward.
Herzog run over. And a free kick to St. Louis. Midway point of stoppage time.
Tiny little hiccup in the step of Kevon Lambert. Have to wonder if Patrice is going to look to his bench, solidify the midfield in the second half. Hate to see him come out. He's such an integral piece, but definitely been off sorts since that tackle.
Culbertson popped up towards the corner. Gregg missed on his looping header. St. Louis very quickly has found something to hang their hat on at the end of the first half.
Exactly what you should expect out of that extremely talented left foot of Kyle Culbertson. A moment ago, just saw him swing a ball in and just poor effort, to say the least. But this one, he redeems himself. Great ball sprayed in. Kyle Gregg just tries to pick out the back post. Carl Wazinski had it covered, but you have to be excited about the response from St. Louis coming off of the goal, especially towards the latter portion of the first half. Final 20 minutes have been very good.
Cortez, Johnson charging forward. Asante making a central run. Asante backing in. That's cleared. Now Calistri. Herzog bodied by Farrell. Culbertson slides to the ground. Culbertson. And it's Gregg again in the thick of it. Well, if you're Patrice Carteron nearing halftime, Devin, you have to be pleased with this effort after being thoroughly underwhelmed on the road to Kansas City last time out. This is a good result out of the locker room with.
Happy for the most part. We've seen the isolated situations where they've been exposed on the outside. Unfortunately, St. Louis hasn't taken advantage of those, but they've been much better, much more efficient going forward. Past 2-3 games, when they've gotten into the final third, we've seen some opportunities from 25, 30 yards out. The frustration starting to boil over. Hasn't carried into this evening's performance. They've done a good job. Combination play down to the channels, moving in the middle. Like to see them carry that over into the second half, but St. Louis has had some good responses trying to keep themselves in this game.
A lengthy first half. Referees got whistle to mouth, but well, Culbertson a chance to bring it forward, and well, that's it. Well, St. Louis finally home, but it's Chris Cortez that takes the curtain call. Phenomenal goal for the rising striker.
6th goal this season in the 6th minute. It's a pretty good number. We'll keep on that topic. 6 games this year on the road. Phoenix Rising, 13 points. Road Warriors, to say the least. But don't forget, St. Louis unbeaten at home this year, 2-0-2, playing most of their games on the road so far, but coming home, getting the opportunity to be strong in front of their fans. 45 minutes to do so.
Both goalkeepers with significant stops the opening half, but nothing you can do about this. Chris Cortez, goal number 18 in a Phoenix uniform. And the Rising over St. Louis at the half, a goal to nil. Plenty more coming up after this.
At Althoff Catholic High School in Belleville, Illinois. Fire Knights will face their cross-state rivals, the Kansas City Courage, in a WPSL regular season game at 7:15 p.m. Prior to their game, the St. Louis Ambush will play an exhibition game at 5 p.m. against St. Louis Marisa FC of the United Premier Soccer League. This special soccer Saturday doubleheader will include activities for the entire family, such as a free soccer clinic for the kids who pre-purchase tickets and register, an autograph session, inflatable space painting, and more. Tickets are available in advance for just $10 each through the Ambush website or by calling the Ambush office at 636-477-6363. At the gate on game day, tickets will be $12 each, with children 4 and under free, and seating will be general admission. Once again, let's hear it for the 2017 Women's Premier Soccer League champions, Fire Knights Soccer Club.
Fans out in force, finally home again at Toyota Stadium for St. Louis Football Club. And, well, there was a couple of big highlights in this first half, but it's Chris Cortez of Phoenix Rising has the lone goal in the 6th minute. For Phoenix Rising, part of their blueprint to eventually make a run towards sold-out stadiums all began with bringing in, well, Didier Drogba. If you're going to bring in a footballer of pro and international fame, this is probably your guy to do it. And he hit 500 league career appearances last time he touched the field in the USL.
You hit the nail on the head. And actually, you started with those comments about midway through the first half, and you talked about how there were only 4 guys, I believe you said, that were on the roster this year from last year. Didier Drogba, owner. Not even on the roster at that point in time. So they brought in a great guy. And what an ambassador for the game. Obviously, done wonder things for Ivory Coast, over 100 appearances, and then the list goes on. Marseille, Shanghai Shenhua, Galatasaray, Chelsea, obviously done great things for Phoenix Rising and Montreal Impact in the MLS. Can't say enough about him in every way, shape, and form.
Well, Patrice Carteron only has about 415 career appearances in league games, but, well, Drogba's something else. It's 1-0 here, Phoenix. How about we take a look at the breakdown?
Welcome to another episode of The Breakdown. This week I've handpicked some of my favorite plays from the week. I hope you guys enjoy it.
Back across to lose Iwolo, still loose, and how about?
This play from Iwolo starts here. You know, he wins the header, and that allows his striker to go through on goal. The commitment to win the header and then follow it through with the run and the support as well, because he could just stop. He could stop his run and expect the striker to score, but he follows it through. He doesn't take the best of first touches when it comes back to him, but he has the composure to take another touch and relax. So a cheeky double nutmeg to finish it off.
Sort of there, finds Perez. Perez with the back heel, it's there, and a goal! Joaquin Rivas!
This play is more about the assist. When he picks it up, it's very difficult because he has 2 defenders on him. He uses his awareness, his spatial awareness is fantastic. He tries to stay in the box as long as possible, and then the support run from Rivas is also tremendous. It looks an easy skill, but it's not. It's very difficult. And again, Rivas's finish on the weaker foot into the far corner. Again, it's a brilliant play.
Combine well with others. We saw him a few weeks ago with Fresno.
Oh, this is dangerous opportunity here, strike, and we are equal!
This has to be one of my favorite plays from the week. When Lopez gets the better of his defender here, he sees the keeper coming out. His first touch actually takes him on a tight angle. And when you see this frame here, he knows he's got 3 defenders rushing back to goal. So that when he takes his strike, he knows that he has to put pace on it. Now, to put pace on it from that angle is a very difficult technique. I don't think if he had that moment again, he could do it any better. You know, it's a fantastic finish, perfect, with 3 defenders running back to goal. It has to be my favorite play of the week.
Mendez, good ball. Here's Zubak looking for number 3, and he scores!
The connected movement from Ethan Zubak and his fellow strike partner here is fantastic. You know, he comes to feet and he drags the defender with him, and then he uses his agility and his speed to get past the defender with just a simple movement, a simple step. Again, to have that partnership with your striker is something that's very strong, and it will hold him in good stead for the season. There's a reason why he's player of the week. Out of his 4 goals that he scored, that was my favorite, purely because of the movement and the tactical awareness from both of them.
When I saw Alex Mendez get the ball from an entry pass, I just knew I had to spin off, and when the ball came right to my feet on top of the box, I just decided to go for it and finish it.
I hope you've all enjoyed this week's episode of The Breakdown. I look forward to seeing you next week.
Back in St. Louis, where the Hooligans have been loud, but Phoenix's goal-scoring prowess has shown nonetheless. 1-0 to the Rising on the road as they look to move within 4 points of top of the Western Conference. At halftime, our USL Game of the Week. Kevin Kerr alongside Mike Watts with you. Let's take a look what's coming up this weekend. St. Louis taking on Swope Park Rangers, the reigning conference champions in the USL Cup playoffs, twice now finalists for the USL Cup. And then Portland Timbers too. How did this happen? They take on San Antonio rather. Phoenix is off on the weekend. Some tasty matchups out west.
T2, the Western Conference Wonder Boys, as I like to call them, they've gotten it going, and they've kept it even-keeled the entire time so far. 23 points right now, just sitting 5 off of Real Monarchs. Everybody chasing them in Zions Bank Stadium. But look, everything here is going to have an impact for this weekend, and you have to realize that we've seen what most teams are made of, okay? You've stepped up and okay, we're in a chess match, but now it's the time. Start to kick it into gear. 10, 12 matches in, depending on who you face so far. Now you got to start pulling the points and getting positive results to put yourself in position to make the playoffs.
Well, these St. Louis fans, you even see the Pulisic jersey off in the distance, hoping to see a little bit more from their offense in this second half of play. Plenty of highlights to show you, though. We'll have them right on the other side of this timeout. The sun's setting over St. Louis. There are few cities that can point to a richer soccer tradition than St. Louis through St. Louis Scott Gallagher, St. Louis University, of course, St. Louis Football Club, who trail a golden nil at halftime against Phoenix Rising in the USL Game of the Week. With Devin Kerr, Mike Watts, first half highlights from this affair. And the ultimate highlight shows up early in this one. Chris Cortez getting on the ball after the turnover forced by Lambert, and this is a missile in the 6th minute.
Unfortunate from Jonathan Barton, who does such a good job holding up play in the middle in combination with Lewis Hilton, just turns it over. Solomon Asante takes one little touch. Cortez tees it up, and just, you expect him to pick out a corner there. Unfortunately, Tomas Gomez having to deal with the sun setting literally on him. In transition, going the other direction, Kadeem Dakers does a good job looking for Corey Herzog, picks out that far post. That was what we saw pretty much for the most part from St. Louis going forward. There wasn't a lot of prolific opportunities getting up. Chris Cortez trying to get on the action on the in-swinger from Jason Johnson. A lot of things that just never really came to fruition in the final third. Again, another good look from Corey Herzog, but we saw it on the header, we see it on the half volley, just not enough to beat Carl Wazinski.
We're ready to say, what are you doing? And then quite nearly one of the moments of the season in USL if he finds a way to can that. This from a Wacko. Well, not one, but 2 stops from Gomez.
Scintillating stuff. Great ball lofted in by Chris Cortez. That supporting role, that's what we talked about. The big presence, grabs the ball, brings it out. Does a good job picking out Kevon Lambert, dropping it off. Gladson Owako has a crack, but just another phenomenal save by Tomas Gomez, who kept them in this game. And that really was the focal point, the turning point for the latter portion of the first half. St. Louis started to get things going, pushing things forward a little bit better, but again, still looking to break the deadlock.
Well, possession is a number that for Phoenix at times almost feels meaningless when they're playing at their best. Sometimes that is the possession number that they're looking for.
It's a fun conversation to have with Patrice Carteron because he'll tell you that they're a possession-oriented team, but as you said, Mike, when you go back through the metrics, you don't see it. They put up a lot of shots on target, usually losing the possession battle. Unfortunately, you see that offside number. Guys got to keep their head on a swivel a little bit better. We've seen some very flat runs that need to bend back a little bit more. Twice from Jason Johnson, one from Chris Cortez. Just got their hand caught in the cookie jar. If they want to be able to solidify this win and get a finalization of this process that they've been going through to push the Spirit, they need to put up another goal. St. Louis is creeping back into this match.
When you talk about spirit, and well, the spirit of Phoenix Rising is Patrice Carteron. He arrived about a year ago now. He was previously a national team coach of Mali. He spent 11 years as a coach in Saudi Arabia and around Africa. These players have taken to him, and we as announcers have really come to get to know him a bit better, and I think we're all a little better off for it.
The ambassador that we talked about, Didier Drogba, that spirit really does transition to his manager, Patrice Carteron. He's such a great guy to talk to, a great footballing mind, but a great person as well. And every time you chat with him, he's so kind to give you his time and his knowledge of the game. There's a good look at the numbers that he's brought to this Phoenix Rising squad. One that's not up there that you've seen so far is that, look, tonight with a win, he's going to tie the club record for most wins with Mike De La Russo, now an assistant over with Wilma Cabrera at Houston Dynamo. But you see, goals against, much lower, very good. And goals a game, obviously we've seen it, 5 versus Tulsa, 3 versus Oklahoma City. But again, they've gone through these lulls as of late with Sac Republic. But getting back on track here this evening, doing a good job. Unfortunately, they tend to kind of fade off in games. Like to see him close it out. Anthony Punis going to look for the Khaled punch.
Let's take a look at some news and notes around the USL. It took 48 days for number 49 to score goal number 50 of his USL career. Congratulations to Chandler Hoffman, the Birmingham, Alabama native. Birmingham Legion, of course, making a big move in their front office today that's worth taking a look at on USLsoccer.com. Very strong goal-scoring month in May, including for Efrain Alvarez and Ethan Zubak and LA Galaxy, too.
Hoffman, I mean, what can you say? It's just been an absolutely stellar performance, far short of spectacular. Ethan Zubak, it's just what he's been able to do out there. I mean, the 3 goals in the 8 minutes was absolutely amazing. And what's crazy was Las Vegas actually had a response in the first half. They kept coming back and, you know, going in 3-2, but just pulling away. Ariel Lassiter getting in on the act. A lot that's gone on there. And Efrain Alvarez, what can you say about that youngster? He's been, 2 out of the past 3 weeks, we've seen someone got Los Dos getting player of the week.
You know, we talk about these young burgeoning stars, and Galaxy 2 may have a couple on their roster right now. They've got some real young talent. And you could say the same about this St. Louis side, one that's so proud of their ability to cultivate talent out here. Anthony Pulis has spent time at Orlando City B these last couple of years with young teams and developing groups that get better defensively, because with OCB, their first year, 49 goals allowed, 14 fewer goals allowed. The next year, they don't make the playoffs, but defensively much improved, and well, St. Louis hopes he can do the same here this year.
He made a decent run of it in Orlando, but unfortunately just couldn't finish it off. And it's one of those times where when you get hot, you want to stay hot. He just never really got into that pattern. Struggled with formation and personnel. We talked to him about that. You have to understand that when you're at OCB, unfortunately, which is no longer with us, when he was at OCB, you have to deal with the roster and personnel changes. When Orlando City decided to loan players to them, he didn't always have the say on exactly who was going to play. You know, unfortunately, certain points in time, you have to play the MLS player. You can understand that, but here, now he's at the helm on his own. He's got the reins. We talked about him just loving this town, still looking to find those results on a regular basis.
That was one of the funniest things in the opening week of the season to me, was just how impressed the St. Louis front office was when I spoke with them, that he knew everybody's name from the outset, that he made the effort to get to know the organization and the fan base and go around to different community events. And it's one thing to build a roster on your own for the first time, truly build your own roster. It's another thing to try and build the culture of an organization. I think Anthony Pulis has the right idea on how to do that.
You don't have to think it, Mike. You can know it 100%. You hear that from everybody. You hear it. The sound reverberates throughout the entire community. That's the coolest thing. Everybody has bought into what's going on here. They're drinking the water.
Because the other half of that conversation was, well, we've made changes before and everyone was high on them, and, well, they didn't pan out with playoff berths, so it's a wait and see. Johnson! If he scores that, everybody goes home.
A mic drop in the 47th minute.
After what Cortez did in the first half, I think we can call it a day.
Anthony Pulis wouldn't have been too happy if this one ended up in the back of the net. Stung in the 6th minute and then being caught off guard in the 3rd minute of the second half.
Jesse would like to wish a happy 9th birthday to Andrew Hammond. Happy birthday, Andrew.
Culbertson. Play held up. Lambert arrives. To be frank, it's good to see Lambert still on the field in the second half after picking up a knock in the opening 45.
You see him, though. He's got a noticeable limp going on. You saw the hands on the hips a second ago. Not a response you want from your holding midfielder, especially not just a few moments into this second half. If you take a look at the personnel that he carries on the bench, though, the only two that he would probably go to are Evan Waldrop or Alessandro Rigi. Rigi tends to be a little bit more offensive-minded. Evan Waldrop definitely in the holding midfielder position. You could use Luca Ricci as well, but he's come over from the Impact Academy. Only 3 appearances. Don't really see him that often, and in a game of this magnitude, I'd be shocked to see him step in.
Whistle against Kavita. Phoenix will have an opportunity from 3-4 yards outside the penalty area.
This has been a spot that Phoenix has struggled with. Colin Fernandez, someone who struggling with injury as of late, would hit a lot of the dead balls for them. Solomon Asante likes to step up as well, and we all know the ungodly things that Didier Drogba can do with a dead ball situation. Time and time again has hit things from another world. But both Solomon Asante and Gladson Awako has stepped it up as of late.
Asante! Phenomenal bending free kick. A little man that, again, has massive ambitions and giant goals in it. It's 2-0.
Quite difficult to see from the camera angle. But Phoenix, once again, stunning the crowd in the opening moments of this second half. They did it in the first, got back to basics. Super Solomon hits a sexy little strike to the upper corner. Tomas Gomez has got to be snake bitten, to say the least. 2-0.
Asante won the Champions League in Africa. He felt I had won everything there was to win there. He came to follow his former head coach, Patrice Carteron. And well, Solomon Asante is not playing around. What a wonderful strike. Knocked away by Reynolds. Well, St. Louis needs to figure something out here offensively. The 14th best offense in the Western Conference in the USL this year. That's the best offense in the league. 11 goals for so far for St. Louis. Now 25 for Phoenix at this point of the season. And Devin, I think coming into halftime, part of the problem is Phoenix has this momentary brilliance, but it didn't really feel like offensively they had built up and had these great runs of possession and of attack. And then they get another free kick goal here, and the scoreline looks great, but I think they're still progressing on the offensive end more than the scoreline may show.
We've really only seen them push numbers like that forward on a regular basis a few times this year, and you're spot on, Mike. They come out, they give you these, I should say, glimpses of brilliance, and then they sort of fade off into the night.
Landing ball for Awako. He keeps in. Back to Asante. It almost at times feels like this Phoenix team is so talented that they fall into complacency from an outsider's perspective. When you talk about the spirit and concentration not being there, this is, if not the most talented team in the league. You can't get beyond one hand worth of counting.
It goes back to some of the accolades you brought up on how some of these guys have won so many things in other areas and parts of the world. Didier Drogba, Solomon Asante, Gladson Awako, their head man, Patrice Carteron. So they've done so many things at a high level that the complacency starts to creep in, because they have to remember they haven't done anything yet. You haven't won anything yet.
Not here.
Not here. Not in the United States, not in the USL. So doesn't matter how many goals you put up, they're still looking for that title.
Wakasa sends it aside. Diving down, Gomez didn't have to make the save. It's a corner in the end. Amadou Dia, well, he knew he had something special there cooking.
The way that Amadou Dia was positioned on that one, lined up with his body facing the corner, hitting with the outside of his left foot, going near post. He's been playing FIFA too long. There's another good look. You can see him square to the outside. He just slowly turns it, hits it with the outside of his left, trying to find the near post.
And it comes out as far as Wakasa over the top. Header saved. And there's a look towards the AR on the near sideline. The flag never went up. Culbertson trying to play through on the left-hand side. Wazinski sliced this out of play. Did look like DeFont had a beat on that.
The conversations on both ends of the field need to be better, because for Patrice Carteron, those are one of those moments right there where you could have possibly closed out the game. Got a one-on-one situation with Chris Cortez. All someone needs to say is time. He can take a touch and finish it off. Elects to go with the head, and it's easy pickings for Gomez. And then going in the other direction, you can see the camaraderie between the back line is still fluctuating. And it's been frustrating for Joe Farrell and Mike DeFont, who are caught in transition. Again, if St. Louis wants to make a game of it, they need to go forward quicker. That's been to be able to catch Phoenix Rising on the go.
Let's not forget that Farrell dealt with an ankle injury earlier this year, and there's also a change formationally defensively. How about Culbertson? Just outside of Herzog. Asante. What kind of magic does he have in him? He's played a wonderful ball for Cortez. Johnson's making his run. Cortez for Asante. Johnson now. Hudson Awako. The overlap's available. Now he plays Wakasa, who stayed on side and misfired in his service. Now a whistle as Herzog was held up. St. Louis finally home again. Dealt with just travel nightmares going away to Colorado Springs on Friday last week. Away in the Open Cup to Louisville City. They only spent a little over 27, 28 hours in St. Louis between the time they left for Colorado Springs and the time they finished out at Louisville and made it back. Dakers pushing all the way. Had his pocket picked by Dia. Doesn't get easier. Swope Park Rangers, who eliminated Phoenix from the playoffs last year, are coming next. Game that's part of a four-pack of tickets that St. Louis is offering. That game's Saturday, June the 2nd. Just you and about 5,000 of your closest friends coming out for that and a handful of other games. Now, Phoenix looks forward to a bye week and then away to Sacramento, hosting Las Vegas Lights.
Phoenix is going to deal with a tiny little bit of lull in their schedule. You mentioned the bye and then Sac Republic. Vegas is, we'll say they've not been Vegas, or maybe they have. Still figuring that one out. El Chalice and Isidro trying to get those guys back on track.
They've both told us time and time again this year that we'll be in the playoffs when it's all said and done. Hilton deflected back out, and Lambert will make easy work. I'm not so sure. It's not saying they won't be there, just saying there's a long way to go. Reynolds. From Barden. Reynolds again. Hilton. There's some space opening up. Gets wide of Calais Street. Culbertson. This is better from St. Louis. Sante, poor clearance. Barton, and then a heavy challenge from behind. Trainer being waved onto the field. It's a talking to for now for Musa, and the referee reaching to his pocket.
James Musa not happy with head referee Kevin Broadley and his decision to put him in the book, but you'll see Musa is pretty tactical with his decisions. Doesn't really put himself in a situation to make a lot of professional fouls and get things going on the counter, especially when he moves into that center back position. But when he goes, he usually goes with brute force, and he puts forth a battering effort right on the back of Calistri. You can see the forearm and the shoulder charge just coming through, catching him on the back of the head, going to ground hard. Leave a mark on Calistri, but this is a good opportunity for St. Louis.
Hilton on the left. Will be Lewis Hilton. Aiming for the post. Herzog was a decoy. Tavita making his move. You know, there are times, Devin, we don't get a ballot in this, but I think there should be an all-league public relations team. Tyler Tetzlaff and the group in St. Louis do a great job. Jose Bosch in Phoenix is always good for interesting, at minimum, interesting social media, including his commentary on your commentary of that last free kick.
Gonna have to have a little word with Jose Bosch after that one. It was a solid free kick by Solomon, and just kind of leading in. Unfortunately, from the camera angle, we kind of lost focus of where the play was at, but that's where I was leading, that Colin Fernandez had stepped out, that they were looking for that focal point when Didier's not in the lineup and who's going to step in. And Solomon has had a few cracks at goal here and there and hasn't really been able to get onto the score sheet, but making me eat my words, to say the least. Phenomenal effort.
Dia caught by Gomez. And to take that a step further, of course, and you said at the time, ungodly, I think, things that Didier Drogba's done on free kicks in this league, and that's been world-renowned since he arrived, and it was before he arrived, for that matter, too. But the last two games, they haven't been able to score as much. Drogba may well be in and out of the lineup for the next month or two. And this is a Phoenix team that's going to have to find different focal points. And if it's Asante taking free kicks, great. But even Billy Forbes is still out another couple weeks.
They're missing a lot of guys with personnel issues and everything that's going on. We talked about the transition in the formation, but eventually, like you said, it's got to be next man up.
Falls to Herzog. Herzog tried to curl that around, couldn't get there.
That's frustration from Corey. 61st minute, hasn't really seen the ball that much in the second half. It goes back to what we talked about when we first came on air, Mike, that we've seen streaky play from all of the guys going forward. Kadeem Dakers has been in and out. Corey Herzog with a couple opportunities in the first half. At no point in time have we really seen a lot of combination play between those guys. Kyle Gregg getting involved. Like, the three of them need to come together at some point in time. Otherwise, they're going to just continuously end up with the goose eggs, which we're seeing more often than not.
Do you think right now it's more communication, or is there a missing piece to this whole puzzle?
I asked a very similar question to Anthony Poulos. I said, listen, you know, are the guys training well? Are you seeing what you want to see? Because we've asked that question to coaches behind closed doors before, and they've been very coy at times and cordial at other points in time. For us, it's usually the latter, where they'll say, you know what, we've really struggled in the final third. Our finishing hasn't been great in practice. We're going to switch some things up, see if we can see something different. That wasn't the case for Anthony Poulos. He told us they've been coming well, but eventually, once that first and second goal start to fall, they should come in waves and waterfalls.
And that's been the case for Herzog and Gregg, and you could say the same for Albert Dequa, and over the course of their careers. Look at this heavy challenge.
Amadou Dia doesn't really have a leg to stand on in that situation, just throwing a frustrating forearm to Kadeem Dakers. Keep an eye on Phoenix. Had trouble closing out games in the past.
Well, speak of the devil, Albert Dequa set to come on after this next dead ball. In swinging ball. Headed down to Herzog. Reynolds won't get there. And Dequa will make his entrance. That's enough for Corey Herzog. 27 goals over the last 2 years in Pittsburgh. Just 1 goal so far this year. He'll continue his search.
Frustrating night for that young man who still looking to find, make his presence felt here this 2018 season. Guy has made it practically at every level.
Cortez again! A swipe, but it's over the top of Gomez, and a goal kick. Good point. Herzog at every point in his career has made an impact. The time will come for that.
We saw that here tonight. Just it's streaky play from the guys up top. He's got so much talent again, and just you're going to play the 4-4-2 system. I respect it. I grew up playing it. Played it overseas, played it domestically, and there is a form to it and an art, but right now it's just the functionality of it all isn't coming to fruition for St. Louis. You can see them coming out of the back. It's great that you can hold possession and move the ball up, but when you hit the middle of the park, hit midfield, you got to turn it to another level. Expect more out of Lewis Hilton and Jonathan Bard in the middle of the field. Overlapping runs have to be more prolific.
Culbertson getting forward. And for Greg. Out to Lambert. Asante. That ball hung in the air for an eternity, and now Owako gets tackled to the ground.
This is a difficult one for Lewis Hilton. You see him go to ground and he gets up, and where he's unfortunate is if he keeps his arm out of the play there in that situation, referee might let the play go a little bit, but he wraps up Gladson Owako, and that's easy for Kevin Broadley to blow his whistle in that situation.
Holds up for Culbertson. Off of Cortez. 65 minutes gone. Phoenix has scored twice off wonderful goals. Cortez in the 6th and Asante on a free kick in the 49th. As St. Louis trying to get the offense chugging again. Well, Phoenix's offense picked up where they left off a week and a half ago. A devastating 3-game run. Out of form on the offensive end. Here's they've jump-started the group. I think forward for Phoenix, really this bye week coming up would have been brilliant for them had they made the next round of the U.S. Open Cup. Dia, nobody home. Could have faced MLS competition, and well, they're ousted again before they get a chance at an MLS team.
Just couldn't really get it going a few weeks ago. Ended up losing in penalty kicks.
Against Sporting Arizona.
Yeah, it was a frustrating performance for them, and Patrice talked about that. That they actually started off quite well, but unfortunately after their goal, they just kind of turned things off. And we've seen that from them in the past, where boys in red will come out, they'll put together 45, 50, 60 minutes, they'll go out, get that 1 goal, and just think they can put it on cruise control and close out. The talent level in this league, you can't do that. Got to finish it off. Saw the same thing in the U.S. Open Cup this year versus Sporting Arizona, where got that goal and just Tried to slide into the final 90 minutes, couldn't do it, got snake bitten a little bit and ended up losing in PKs.
DeFont, St. Louis knocked out on what was world class from Sean Tosh away to Louisville City. Wako, Dia turns well on this. Spins twice around Calistri, finds Johnson. Johnson shooting, he puts it in. Jason Johnson makes it 3 for Phoenix. And finally, that well-worked goal in the run of play for the Rising.
We've talked about Phoenix and their ability to get forward, how good they are in transition. Just kind of taking a step back on that notion a little bit. Good ball movement, an excellent team goal from Phoenix Rising. Ball down into the corner. See Dia getting to the byline, knocks it across. Expected one of the St. Louis defenders to step up as it came across to knock the ball out. Tomas Gomez left out to dry a little bit on his goal line. Might have been able to get out a foot on it. Nonetheless, it's Jason Johnson with icing on the cake.
13 goals last year, 7 came in September and October. Tomas Gomez has a shutout every other game in his USL career. But he and his St. Louis FC side have conceded now 3 times. And it's a bit of a shocked silence. Quiet buzz, Fenton, Missouri.
This is where you need the St. Louligans to step in. A lot of the fans already making their way to the exit signs. Still plenty of time left in this match to get back in. The performance by Phoenix Rising in the second half has been stellar so far. 23.5 minutes in. Got the early goal again to put them up 2-0, and then just didn't really show their full hand. Didn't really do that much to put the game away. Had some opportunities, but St. Louis was hanging around. Catch a little lull in the game. Phoenix Rising start to turn it up a notch. They downshift and just go into another gear. Cruising at 3-0.
Well, there are some interesting areas coming into this game. Solomon Asante was going for another one, this one a bit further out. Coming in, Phoenix has changed formations drastically over the last 3-4 games. Even Anthony Pulis pointed out they start in one formation at halftime, switch again in the 60th minute over these last 3 games. At times difficult to get a grip on what Phoenix was going to bring to the table. And when you listen to Phoenix, it felt like they were prepared to be a buzzsaw in this game for St. Louis, in that they felt like they hadn't played well. I thought they came out, had a really strong intent from the get-go against this possession style of St. Louis.
The first 25 minutes of this game were 100% all the Phoenix Rising. They came out, got the early goal, and you could see that intensity. Let's go a step further. The spirit, that's been the word of the night for Phoenix Rising. The spirit that Patrice Carteron has tried to instill in his boys. That was extremely prevalent. They came out right away, get the goal, and they kept pushing the pace, the formation. And to your point, Mike, Patrice Carteron has a great tactical mind. That's hard to deal with. It's hard to deal with from a game-to-game situation, yet alone from minute to minute, how they can go from a 3-4-3 to a 4-2-3-1 and shift around. They can go to the diamond in the middle. They can go flat. It causes a lot of frustration for teams because are you going to go to Cody Wakasa, who we see on the ground now and wish him the best? Are you going to get him in an overlapping run that's going to help put 3-4 guys on the right-hand side with the trailer for Jason Johnson on the back? Or is he going to sit and you're going to see a ball sprayed up to Cortez with an overlapping run by Drogba or Billy Forbes? You don't know. And to have to constantly guess your tactics game in and game out, that's difficult to deal with.
Wakasa and Culbertson are waiting to come back on. So both have returned to play. after a collision of two heads. What a night for Phoenix, dispelling any concerns. We showed you earlier that they've actually still had their best pace, best start to a season this year, despite their last two losses, but just one loss in their first 10. And those last two losses would maybe cause concern to others, but this Phoenix coaching staff have been outwardly confident they would find a way to get a result on the road to St. Louis. And right now, they've looked the part of the aggressor in our USL Game of the Week.
I'm going to go two directions with your comment there, Mike. One for Phoenix Rising. They've never lost when they've scored first. I mean, that is an amazing statistic. It just shows you they're the lead horse, the rabbit. They like to get out in front and go with it. But on Anthony Pulis' side for St. Louis, he told us time and time again in that phone conversation, trust the process. You're down 3-0 at home, your first home loss of the season.
Are you trying to tell me that he has burner Twitter accounts?
Where's the process going?
Is that the process? I don't. And look, results matter. He said this is a results-driven business. Rudolph set to come on. Daker's coming off. He made no bones about that. But if you get enamored by scorelines 12 games into the season, that's a dangerous proposition for a team that's trying to change the way they play.
It's very different of an organization than we saw last year when Preki was in charge, and the personnel is different. Obviously, the management is different, but the ownership remains the same, and they know what they want.
They want to win. Header is in! Rudolph right off the bench! Back home again, and back on the score sheet.
If you want to win, guess you can start with this guy. He's the forgotten soldier of sorts. They just re-signed him on May 21st. His second appearance of the season. Came on as a late substitute for Colorado Springs. Great run by Seth Rudolph. Wazinski is livid with his backside defense, and James Musa called out twice here this evening. What better to get on the act than your second goal scorer from 2017? 7 goals last year, 2 appearances this year. He's got 1 goal to show for it. 2 goals more to get going, 3-1. Good job by St. Louis.
7 goals last year, you mentioned, in 820 minutes. An incredible strike rate. Rudolph overrun, Hilton the assist. Leads the team in chances created this year. Rudolph, a St. Louis Scott Gallagher guy out of Belleville, Illinois, one of those local products for St. Louis, and they have many. Will this hold in for Culbertson? It did. Oh, I want another corner off of Wakasa.
As the ebb and flow of this match started to change, you and I about to put the nail in the coffin. As Phoenix Rising route cruising 3-0. You can hear the St. Louligans starting to get back in on it. The emotions running high and just doing a good job clawing their way back into this match, like the super sub of Seth Rudolph, Albert Dequa.
Reynolds ricochets off of Asante, and now the lightning speed of Jason Johnson. Johnson circling around. Now second time. Lambert. Owako. Cortez, Johnson. Oh, Barden trying to kick that away off of Kavita. Now there's a race to the ball. And Wakasa goes down. A foul against Dikwa. "77 minutes in, and well, you can see perspiration for all. Dikwa's barely been on the field, and well, he's also going to get a chance to rehydrate in this 78th minute of play. Summer heat already showing in St. Louis at Toyota Stadium. It's been hot from the start as Phoenix Rising jumped on the board when the sun was still out. 6th minute, Cortez from distance.
Tomas Gomez just caught with the lackluster start by St. Louis and coming the other direction. Solomon Asante getting it going at the start of the second half. 49th minute, stepping up. Phenomenal free kick. Just picked out the near post. Again, Gomez caught with his wall, not making the most of it. And Amadou Dia, great team goal, great team effort. Good ball into Jason Johnson. Able to slide it by Gomez. Been a frustrating third appearance for Tomas Gomez here this evening, but you have to give credit to St. Louis with the great response. Seth Rudolph coming in moments later, diving header to the back post, edging his team closer. They got within 2.
Phoenix 3, St. Louis 1 now. And Phoenix this year have been just delightful on the road. They usually sell out at home, but when they go on the road, they tend to play like rock stars. Their first loss on the road last week against Swope Park. This is a group that I think both home and road make the argument that they are among the best in both of those splits.
You're spot on, and that's one of the biggest changes. If you go back and look at all the metrics of this squad, they win tonight, they will have 5 away wins. That's one shy of their total for last year. They only had 6 wins last year. They went 6-5-5, and they were 10-3-2 at home. Struggling at home this year, going 2-2-2, but Patrice said, you know, they're going to put together good performances week in and week out. Haven't seen it consistently, but there's another look. 19 wins, the points, everything.
They won 10 of their last 12 last year, including some significant road fixtures. 5 of his 20 wins, if they finish the job tonight, would come on the road just this year alone. They had options domestically. There are a lot of coaches that wanted to coach Phoenix Rising, and the fact that Berke Bakai and the Board of Governors of that team decided to make such a drastic move to a guy that is more world-renowned than nationally renowned drew some eyebrows, to be frank. And they've really, it appears, hit the jackpot. Patrice Carteron.
It's another organization that has really bought into what he brings to the table, and we talked about his passion and his spirit, but the tactical mind that he possesses, superior to most. You don't often see him behind the 8 ball tactically in most of these games. He's usually out in front, dictating exactly where he wants these games to go, but it's faltering off in the past 10 minutes or so. See Musa and Kevon Lambert getting in on the act defensively, and both going in the book. Lambert not here, but he's been struggling in the midfield here in the second half. You can see him every step that he takes, very ginger on that ankle of his.
Well, now Lambert has to form the wall. Corey Herzog has already come off for St. Louis. Certainly Lewis Hilton is capable.
Lewis Hilton had a wonder strike just a few games ago versus Orange County. Towards the middle of the box. It was in the run of play, and he picked out that upper right corner. This is a good spot for him.
It is Lewis Hilton, saved at the post by Wazinski. It's Hilton again, and this through the legs of the St. Louis player and into Wazinski.
It sets the stage perfectly in the 82nd minute. Lewis Hilton, just a bending ball. Such a difficult thing to do, getting up over guys who are 6 foot, 6'2", 6'3". And he just whips it around the wall, gets it to drop quite rapidly, but Carl Wazinski up to the task at hand, makes an excellent save.
Good on Wazinski. They feel like they have 3 quality goalkeepers in Phoenix, which is why he hasn't started in 4 of the last 5. It's been Lubin after a great run of form in Oklahoma. Rosinsky back between the sticks tonight. Owako. There's room to run here for Wakasa. Asante, Owako. Asante. Owako. Now Jason Johnson. Could be a dagger here. Dia on the cutback. Dia against Calistri. Phoenix probing now. Johnson. Kavita moving in. Johnson, a dipping shot held by Gomez.
Some of this stuff for St. Louis is just super simple. Moments ago, over on the right side, you saw the interchanging of Joey Calistri and Fenwell Kavita. It's got to be better by those guys. The overlapping run isn't that difficult to deal with. It's being telegraphed.
Culbertson, that's just too high.
Seconds ahead of time, giving you the opportunity to either A, let the guy go and you pass the runner off, or go with your runner and let the guy step up to the ball. But you could just see both of them gravitating, ball watching a little bit. The overlapping run by Dia. Fortunately enough for St. Louis, the ball didn't get whipped into the middle, but it enabled Phoenix to be able to maintain possession.
Flag is up against Culbertson. Wako slow to get up. Lewis Hilton will come over and check in on him. For 2 teams that at times can be pretty physical, it's actually been rather cordial this evening, hasn't it?
Solid display of sportsmanship, classy performances by both guys on the side of the ball, and you gotta love it. 84th minute. You've got a foe on the other side of the field that you've been doing battle against all night long, and still really classy by Lewis Hilton stepping up and helping off Gladson Owako. See Owako moments ago, just this is the spell of possession we were talking about. Ball got sprayed around and tried to have a little go of it at the top of the box, just coming up a little faint on that step of his.
He's started now 9 times this year. He has failed to complete the 90 minutes in 8 of those times. He'll come off now. So in 9 of his 10 starts, he has come off for Phoenix. And Evan Waldrop comes on, make his 2nd appearance out of Creighton and later Grand Canyon, an FC Tucson guy. FC Tucson, one of those USL D3 entrants, one of those inaugural teams. Madison getting added onto the act. USL D3 just a year away. Owako, guy who played under Carteron, capped with Ghana, still being looked at a bit here. The Phoenix training staff will go to work.
A lot of those substitutions you were talking about, Mike, came in. I'm sure they're still going to come to get everybody a good look here, but they just possess so much talent, and when they were playing in that 4-2-3-1, Gladson Owako would tend to sit at that number 10 position in behind Didier or Chris Cortez. Solomon Asante would play outside on the right, and a lot of times what would happen is they'd bring in an Alessandro Rigi, and they'd let Rigi run rampant on the right side, move Solomon into the number 10. They can just interchange so many guys on this squad. It's crazy. At times they'll even take Rigi, throw him on the left, let Jason Johnson go play and have fun on the right side. So all the offensive firepower that they possess, why not in the 70th minute bring on fresh legs, move some things around tactically, and give it another go?
I think that's going to be the story of Phoenix this year, how that depth ends up correlating to results, because I don't know that there's a team with greater overall squad depth, both in numbers and in quality. You could argue that every player on the bench, or most players on the bench tonight for Phoenix, could start on the majority of teams in the Western Conference talent-wise, and at times can start here for Phoenix.
You can argue, I'll say it.
Yeah, okay.
No, you're spot on. Again, it goes right where you're saying. I mean, why not move things around? But these guys, Patrice did a good job last year coming in and kind of riding the ship, but then he had the opportunity to go through preseason, pick the guys that he wanted to carry over, though not that many, but just continue going in a positive direction, figure out all the personnel that were going to help you play in the system that you want. And more often than not, we've seen that come to fruition.
Look at Waldrop making his move upfield. Johnson, Waldrop. Won't be that time.
Just a few nights ago, enjoying trivia contest with the fans, and now getting into the final third.
Was he one of the fans? No.
He was part of one of the winning teams, I believe it was, that he was enjoying trivia night with one of the fans at a local establishment.
Onside to the near post, and Lambert. Culbertson, Dia, with a win, Phoenix can move within 4 points of Real Monarchs for first in the Western Conference. St. Louis, had they gotten 3 points tonight, could have moved in a tie on points for 7th, but would have sat in 9th on goal differential. St. Louis will get another chance to right the ship in what amounts to a bit of a regional rivalry with Kansas City. And Swope Park Rangers next. Waldrop is through. Chance now for Waldrop. He was offside. His first professional goal wiped off the scoreboard. Okay, I can see what they're getting at.
I'm shocked.
That's a good run from a deep line position.
It's a great run for that holding midfielder, but when they're playing this 3-4-3, especially with the injury to Kevon Lambert, that's a tight one. That's a close one. Sean Reynolds just catching him off a little bit. Evan Waldrop seeing the space and trying to utilize it as best as possible. Still looking for that first goal, though.
Into stoppage time, and well, it's 6 minutes. It was 5 minutes in the first half, and surely the hydration break was a big role in that expansive number. Phoenix, 3 goals tonight, now 26 on the year, most in the USL. Just 15 goals allowed in the upper half of the Western Conference. Team that won 6 road games last year, on the verge of winning their 5th already this year. Wakasa around the back line and in behind off of Culbertson, and a corner for Phoenix.
Solomon Asante into the corner for most likely the final duties of this game. Seconds ticking off the clock. Been a rough one for St. Louis and Tomas Gomez. Some tired legs underneath that man.
Just his 3rd competitive game back from hip surgery preseason. 1 in the Open Cup and 1 against Orange County. Had 2 goals in those first couple games combined, but Cortez got it all started the right way in the 6th minute. Phoenix never looked back. Gregg was fouled. High arm impeded his progress. Now pushing and shoving with Kevon Lambert and Joey Calistri. This could be a bit of no man's land for Lewis Hilton.
He's going to have to put something together special to beat Waz from this distance.
Already denied once. Jamaican flag carried behind the goal. It's Hilton popping it over the back line. That stays in, crossed, still alive! Ricochets away, saved. It's that man again, Waldrop. Hilton lobbing again, punched away by Wazinski.
That's what you want to see out of your goalkeeper.
Dia trying to cover ground, another cross. Hop off of Dia, and a corner to St. Louis. They find a goal here, they can make this interesting.
There's been some questionable goalkeeping over the past few weeks for some of the goaltenders in the USL. Seen some good PK saves, but I'll tell you what, this is impressive for Carl Wazinski. First one off Evan Waldrop's back, and as the ball comes back in, Wazinski just steps up with authority. It's exactly textbook performance, just coming out, punching it away.
Barton approaching the byline, serves across, headed deep, was saved off the line. Second header is in. No, it's over the top. Was just hanging there in the back twine of the net. Reynolds wasn't quite able to get that inside the net.
Everybody in the stadium thought this ball was in. Just one effort after another. First one coming from Albert Dequa. Second one almost at the top of the 18. You can see Sean Reynolds just trying to pick out the far post. Wazinski sliding over. Scintillating stuff in the closing moments. Everybody from Phoenix Rising has been on the defensive P's and Q's.
Phoenix just trying to see this thing out. Frustration bubbling over from Lambert. Gomez will get the first touch. That'll get out. And a corner now for St. Louis. Here Anthony Pulis calling for Lewis Hilton to get to the corner and take this. Service whacked too far. Wazinski will collect, and well, some late struggles here for Phoenix to put this one to bed, but time is on their side. Well, a record-setting night for Phoenix Rising and their head coach. 3-1 win for Phoenix. A 3-game losing streak in the rearview mirror, and Patrice Cartheron is now the all-time winningest coach in Phoenix Rising history as his club goes on the road to St. Louis, picks up a 3-1 victory.
Super stuff from the Phoenix Rising. They had a response at every level in every facet that they faced. Came out early in the first half, came out early in the second. Figured they'd close things out. St. Louis crawled back in a little bit, but the emotional response from them was great. They put together a poised performance, well-deserved 3 points.
Asante, what proves to be the game-winning goal for Phoenix Rising. Chris Cortez, the center of all these celebrations. And Phoenix will celebrate 3 points all the way back home. We'll wrap it up when we come back on ESPN3.
Good warming up today.
Phoenix Rising gets a result that they've really been looking for the last week and a half. They are second place in the Western Conference. They knock off St. Louis in the second all-time meeting. Back then, it was Long Tan and Ty Blackwood. Now it's some new faces, Cortez and Johnson and Asante scoring for the Rising. As we look at our full-time stats, and in the 6th minute, Chris Cortez puts this one to bed.
Chris Cortez just pulling up the ball from Solomon Asante, rolls it over the front, little flick of the wrist, and just beats Tomas Gomez. Phoenix were out running early. It's the response you wanted from Phoenix Rising coming on the road. Again, have only lost once. St. Louis hadn't given up any points at home yet, only in the tie zone, but Corey Hartzog thought he would have a few answers of his own going the other direction. Looking for that wonder strike to beat Carl Wazinski. Streaky for Corey Hartzog here this evening in his performance, and this for me, not only is this the save of the match, it could be the save of the week. Great ball off Kevon Lambert's chest, just knocked down to Gladson Awako and just pulls the trigger, but a good save from Tomas Gomez.
And then move to the second half, and Asante had something special.
As a goalkeeper coming in, sometimes you just have to sit, watch, and on. This is one of those moments. Solomon Asante considers himself a great ball striker, and he should with something like that. Haven't seen it from the dead ball piece yet, but a great finish. Just picked out the upper corner, got it over the wall, able to bend and swerve it. Lewis Hilton tried to do it on the other end, but wasn't able to do so. And Jason Johnson looking to close things out. Good ball movement by Phoenix Rising. Takes one touch, picks out the far post, gets the third goal of the evening, and that was the nail in the coffin.
That in the 68th minute, but St. Louis would have one response of their own. Hilton finding Seth Rudolph, and well, St. Louis Scott Gallagher, a guy, a local product off the bench and in the net.
It was good stuff from Seth Rudolph, but just they're going to come up short. It was too little too late. They couldn't carry the momentum that they had gathered at the end of the first half and into the second. And look, the metamorphosis from them has to be better going forward. It's too streaky. It's too one-dimensional. I respect the 4-4-2 formation, but if you're going to play flat in a lot of these situations, you need guys like Lewis Hilton, Jonathan Barton to show much more of a presence. You want them to dictate the pace, but you also need to be a little bit more prosperous going forward. It was too linear, left and right type stuff. Push down into the channel. Give your guys an opportunity to get on the end of something. You can't just knock a ball in and hope that 1v5 is going to win it every time.
Well, Portland Timbers, too, are still the story of the league in the Western Conference right now. The rest of these teams you could have seen in the top 8 at this point in time. St. Louis still on the outside looking in, but a game in hand on Colorado Springs and a chance to move back up on their Saturday match with Swope Park. And if you're Phoenix, you're right on the tail of Real Monarchs in the West.
A lot of teams getting it going. How about Reno? Reno's kind of finding their form. And Russell's been able to right the ship there. They started off very rocky, but are coming back in. Steve Trichu still trying to figure out what's going on with Colorado Springs. What are we going to be? They like that 4-3-3 and the 4-2-3-1, but they're streaky as well. Carlton Belmar leading the league in goals this year. Haven't found the net as of late. Haji Berry, supporting cast, been getting in on the act, and Braden Cloutier has gotten Orange County going. They were the ones out in front early on, looking to get back in transition and squeak their way up the table.
Well, Phoenix rising up the table again. A 3-1 victory over St. Louis on the road. Pick up 3 points and get back on the winning side of the ledger. For Gage Tillotson, producer Sharni Yerke, Jose Bueso, and Devin Kerr alongside Mike Watts saying so long, and thanks for watching the United Soccer League Game of the Week. Good night.
This copyrighted telecast of the United Soccer League may not be retransmitted, rebroadcast, or reproduced without the express written consent of the United Soccer League.